Welcome to the Modern Day Heroes podcast. Today we have a hero of mine, and pumped to have him, Alex Mashburn, here. He is a wizard in the real estate game, and excited to dive in on everything he's learned. And I'm hoping he drops some learnings and some insider secrets per se to give us an idea of how he's had so much success. And pumped to be with you, bro. How are you?
Dude, thanks for having me on.
You're
Feel
welcome.
honored.
You're welcome, man. So, dude, diving in, tell me start out with the origin, bro. Who is Alex Mashburn? And give us the background, give us the context of you.
Yeah, dude, I mean, I was a kid, just loved to be outside. You know, if you start at the very beginning, I just loved to be outside. Lots of sports, lots of running. I'll kind of go into where I went and ran track at Southern Utah University. And when I feel like I really realized I could do insanely hard things was in 6th grade. I had a elementary teacher, Mrs. Redford.
Can't forget Mrs. Redford.
Can't forget her, dude. She would make us go. There's like a pathway on the outside of the fields with the elementary school. And she would make us do a mile every day.
For class?
For class.
Whoa.
Yeah. And it wasn't, you didn't have to run. You just literally walk. But it's just outside. Everyone's outside 15, 20 minutes, you know. But there's this other kid. I was tall. He was short. And we ran it every day as fast as we could. No joke. We just let's do it. And so I didn't even think about it. I didn't even do track till 9th grade in junior high. But I just always kind of jogged. And and so I was just everyone else is walking, but we want to try to do it hard and go hard. And so in junior high in 9th grade, I did track, and they were like, hey, just try a mile and see how you do. And I think I ran 5:30, and I was my coaches were like, okay, we'll see if you can go a little faster. And next one was 5:05.
Whoa,
and they
dude.
were the next week. And they were like, okay, well, if you can go below 5 minutes, we'll buy you Subway. And dude, 9th grade, a hungry growing kid, I was like, are you serious? There's no way. So I ran 4:55.
Wow.
The next week.
No training, never done track before.
No, never done track. I mean, you train in, track practice in junior high, but the 9th grade. So I think I ran, the best was 4:49 in junior high in 9th grade. And then I was like, man, I can do hard things, you know? So that translates into a lot of other sports. And then definitely school and entrepreneurship and stuff like that.
Cool.
But that's where it started.
What ended up being your best mile?
In college, so it's 4:19.
Was that your race, the mile, or?
No, dude, that's the thing. I actually quit track in college after a year and a half because they were having us run 8 to 12 miles a day, and I'm this 6'4", 200 pound dude. It was mostly 800 meter runs and 400 meter runs. Yeah. So 4:19 was my best, but it's kind of interesting how the track world works. They will measure it out down to sea level. So if you run, there's just a equation, but basically 4:19 is kind of 4:12 or something like that. That's is what you would have run at sea level.
Interesting.
So yeah,
because you're in Utah.
But now there's high school kids running under 4-minute miles. It's
really?
Insane. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I always hear the story of Roger Bannister, and I'm like, all right, so if you're under 4, you're unreal.
Yeah, not anymore.
Wow.
You're good.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's funny to see the evolution of human beings.
Right.
So you do that in college.
Yeah.
And your wife's amazing. Tell us how that came about. You now have 2 kids. Give us a little bit of family background.
Yeah, so we met in high school, and we met in choir.
Look at you, dude.
Yeah, we met in choir. And she played a lot of tennis, and she didn't want to date me because I was playing football, and I had the long curly hair out the back of the helmet. Yeah, she was
Tim Riggins,
such a jock, such a stupid head, you know. Anyway, finally convinced her after like a long time of like just trying to be around her all the time. And anyway, she started dating me. She's a year younger. Then I went on a mission. That was honestly pretty hard for both of us. But we wrote each other emails and handwritten letters. Emails were every single week for 3.5 years because she left on her mission.
Whoa.
A month before I got home.
Wow.
She said, she's like, if I don't go before you go home, I'm not going to go. So she left a month before I got home.
Wow.
Yeah, sucks. But obviously we're both glad.
For sure.
But,
that's amazing.
But yeah, so I was in college for like a year before she got home. And then when she got home, we got married pretty quick. And we'd been obviously talking for way too long.
That's cool, man. Yeah. Were you dating when you got back?
Yeah. We kind of like, I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks into the mission. I was like, God, like I'm trying to focus, but it's really hard knowing like she's in high school. She's got 1 more year.
Right.
Like she means a lot to me. I know like we were meant to like talk and meet each other and stuff. Like very distinct voice. Like if you give me all your heart, mind, and strength, you'll get one chance. Not even like it's going to happen. Just like you'll get one chance with her. So I just told, anyway, essentially we were like, all right.
Wow.
We're good. We're best friends. We're going to write every week, but like we're not like together. We're just write every week. And that's what happened, man. I worked my freaking tail off.
Got the goosebumps, dude.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's the best.
God's good. That's amazing.
God is good.
That is so cool, man. It's good. It's good, man, that we both married girls out of our league. So
yeah.
Okay, and then you guys get married, 2 kids. Tell me give me the background on like your career evolution. Obviously, you do full-time real estate investing now, which I want to dive into deep. Give us the origin of how that came about.
Yeah. So in college, so we didn't grow up with a lot of money, and so that's why I was going into accounting. I figured if you learn more about money, you might have more of it, right? And yeah, kind of crazy, but I had a lot of friends that did like summer sales, and I was like, that's not me. Like I'm not a Pro Bowl All-Star like Blake Erickson over here. Like it's that's not me. And long story short, as like my bank account started going down and down and down, because track only is like a little tiny scholarship. Sure. There's not a lot of money in there.
Sure.
And I had an academic, but just didn't cover everything. So bank accounts just going down and down and down. And after one semester, I'm like almost broke. And I'm like, oh, shoot. And then there's a few summer sales companies like in the hallway and on campus. And they're like, hey, we'll take you to free lunch. So I had 2 buddies of mine, and I think we went to like 3 or 4 like free dinners or free lunch, just because we're broke. Like, nothing yeah, sure, better. We'll take some food, right? And all of a sudden, some of them are like, hey, if all of you guys come, like free cruises, you can come before the summer, or I can't remember if it was before or after, like free cruises or this, that. And I'm like, man, how can they just throw around crap like that? Money, cruises, this, that. I think Vivint was like, well, it was like $1,000 signing bonus or something like that. Anyway, long story short, get connected from a guy from where I started my mission and his friend that still worked at Vivint, and he ended up hooking me up with a pretty good deal. And so I went and sold that summer in D.C. And that was without Brooke, obviously, because that was when she was still gone.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, fine. So I just went all in. I did it. Probably a pretty average rookie. It's like $29,000, and huge for me. I've never seen that much in my life. So I come home and think I'm cool. You're not really
for
cool
sure.
After you make $29,000.
We've all been there, dude. But
you feel cool. Got a little BMW.
Wow.
That I was like the shiz. No, not really. It's just kind of like I felt a lot more confident because of how many people I talked to, how hard I had worked. And then started going broke again. Just like any other summer sales rep, you're like, you have to do it again.
Yeah, that BMW payment started dipping in.
It wasn't like a new one or anything. But anyway, so did it again. And The next summer was like 60K. But you kind of see like there's two types of sales guys. There's like one where they come home from a summer sales or their sales job and they're like, they get that new Mustang and it's like all they do and they just have fun. Spend.
Yep.
And then they got to do it again. And then I saw this other type, that's the second summer of like these guys that would just empty their bank accounts buying real estate. And do you know Drew Riley?
I don't.
So he's one of the ones that like I really looked up to. He did summer sales for like 7 years. I think he bought it's like 30 or 40 properties during that time.
Beautiful.
And when he was all done, I think he had like bought them all for a total of like 15 million or something like that.
Wow.
And like all of a sudden, like 2021 hit, and he was like, yeah, all my properties are worth, I don't know if it was like 20 or 25 million. So he's like, yeah, I just have 10 million. I mean, a lot of properties have been paid down even. So he's like, he had like 10 or 15 million of equity.
Yeah.
And then like tens of thousands of dollars every month in cash flow. And I'm like, that's what I want to do because I don't want to do this forever. So started diving into that a little bit. We got our first property just to live in. And then really it just kind of got lucky. It was right before everything kind of went up. And we bought our first property and I was like, okay, should we rent this out to students or like...
This is 2019, 2020, where were you at?
2020, fall. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, let's try this out. And I think it was Brody Fawcett that told me, hey, like, try Airbnb, And so I tried to figure it out and tested it on Airbnb. We went up for the holidays from Thanksgiving to New Year's for like 5 weeks or whatever. And we tested out our house on Airbnb. We put all the stuff that we got for our wedding that we didn't want people to touch, put it in a closet, locked it, and everything else was already furnished because we were living there. And so we opened it up for a couple weeks. And man, we like our mortgage was like it's $900 on that house, and it was just a pretty new townhome in Cedar City. We got it for $189. Just
beautiful,
lucky time. But it went like we made like triple our mortgage in like a couple weeks from Airbnb, and we're like, why are we living here? Like it's pretty lucky. Like so we left. We tried to leave that next summer pretty as early as we could just to start making money on Airbnb and just seeing, even $1,500 or $2,000 a month profit coming in from a deal that like you still own and it's being paid off. And it's like, man, what if I had 10 of these, 20 of these? And so really just dreaming every day, like how I can make that happen. Yeah.
You said it was Drew, that guy?
Drew Riley. Yeah.
Dude, I want to dive into this for a sec. Because there are thousands and thousands of people that hit the doors every single summer. In 5 years, 7 years, 10 years later, they have nothing to show for it. And so the example, dude, of someone going out 7-year span and going broke, essentially buying assets year over year for 7 years and seeing how that panned out for him is such an important story for everybody to be listening to. And if you're in door-to-door listening, I hope you take that, and even if you've been doing it for 3 years and have nothing to show for it or 5, the cool part is you can change now. And Jeff Mendez always talks about go broke buying assets, broke buying assets. And dude, like here you are making 30, 60 grand and 6 years later making tens of thousands of dollars of recurring income every single month. And so it's also not like, hey, you have to be making $1 million a year to do it. Anyone can do it. And it's just a decision of, hey, I'm going to invest my money rather than spend my money.
Yeah.
My wife all the time is like, dang, they must have so much money because they travel and they shop and they can do like anything with all these amounts and we can't. I'm like, that's amazing. I love that for them. The only difference is we try to invest everything that we have versus they don't. And that's awesome that they get to live that lifestyle, but I'm just trying to pay the price now.
No, and I'm to insert something there. Like, I don't fully, like, advise people to do what we did. at the level we did, because we would bring our bank account down to like $900, bro.
I know all about that, dude.
Like, we're, and like, hey, we're going to make it work. There's always a way to make it work. And because I saw the same thing with, just like Drew Riley, I saw Brody Fawcett do the same thing where he just kept buying properties and making it nice. And I just thought that was cool too. So, but yeah, there's an element to just pressure is a privilege, and to, put that on yourself intentionally, it's pretty hard. Well, it's pretty hard to do.
And it's worth it.
It's worth it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So it's cool. You have people that have paved the way for you and kind of showed you this vision of what's possible. And that then allowed you to kind of decide a roadmap of like, cool, I want to be on the same path. Did a couple years there at Vivint. And then at what point was it like, I think I have enough knowledge now where I can do this full time? How did that come about? And for someone listening, that's like, hey, eventually I want to be a full-time real estate investor. Speak to them.
Yeah. So I did 2 years at Vivint, and then we kind of transitioned into solar, and I went and tested it out for a week with my manager. Just him and I, Killeen, Texas, and just figured it out, really, with an install company. And I think that week I made like 20 grand, and I was like, this is like almost as much as I made my first summer.
Yeah.
This is my third summer. So it's kind of bought into it. Things didn't work out super well with, I wish we would have just stayed in that area, to be honest. But just with how it was just a chaotic mess, transitioning a whole company basically into solar, and everyone's trying to figure it out, and I'm training people, not getting paid for it, and taking my time to do that. And anyway, so I still felt like I was working for someone, and my mind was just always on real estate. So I think it was I don't know if you listen to Case Studies podcast with Casey Bob, but on the Case Lawrence one, which is one of the most recent ones, he says, like, or maybe it was David Nealman, basically, like, if you don't go to bed at night just like so amped about something and wake up the next day just so like on fire like this, then like you might not be, entrepreneurship might not be for you.
Interesting.
But like that's how real estate was for me. I would like go sleep at night, I'm like, man, how do people buy these big apartment complexes? How do they do this? How do they do this? And so those 2 summers I did solar just wasn't what it was told it would be.
Sure.
And I was like, man, the only thing I have that's making me money that isn't reliant on somebody else is real estate. And so it was like, I just kind of wanted to transition out of that. And so I would go make like $100,000 with solar, and then I'd be done. I would do that in like a month and a half, and I would just check out. And I just did that for those 2 years, which is not smart because I had friends doing 300, 400, 500. Sure. But for me, taking that paycheck and taking so much time every day and every week to try to figure out this real estate thing, because I think it's 91% now of millionaires are in real estate or have real estate, which is crazy. So I was like, I got to figure this out. So, yeah, I think it might not be for everybody, but for me, it's just all I thought about. And so once I, saw a little jump to even help Brody at real estate investing school to just be around real estate even more and people that own more, really helped me to take the leap. And then a lot of people wanted to start partnering just when I started showing what I was doing on social media and stuff like that. So.
And that was how long ago? When was your last summer selling?
2022 summer. So not last summer, but the summer before.
Yeah, so it's been almost 2 years.
Almost. Yeah.
And so catch us up on the last 2 years. What have you done?
Um,
What does your life look like now versus before?
yeah, no, I think it's crazy when you go for it. So started off partnering with one or two people on just some little single family deals. I knew about.
And tell us how you structured those partnerships to give us some context.
Okay. So there's a few loans that like a lot of people don't even know about because they're not in this space. Like, so even local credit unions in Utah, Mountain America Credit Union has a 10% down,
Yep.
no mortgage insurance investment property loan, or a vacation home loan, 5% down, no mortgage insurance, which is insane, right? So we'd go buy these $300,000 properties that were by my other ones that I knew would do well with student housing or Airbnb, and they'd be pretty good, with 10% down, so 30 grand. It's like, dude, summer sales reps usually make 50 to 300. It's like you can go get one or two or three or four, right? So anyway,
is there a limit on how many you can do with those?
In your name, I think they limit you to like 5.
Beautiful.
But yeah, we crossed that bridge. But it's pretty much like, man, nobody knows about this, and this is a game changer compared to like. And sometimes, depending on what kind of property it is, like if you can get leases, they'll qualify the property instead of just qualifying you, which is huge for 1099 employees, right?
Massive.
And then I learned about DSCR loans and this and that. It's just like, wow, like a lot of people don't understand how hard money works, how different loan products work. And so just being able to put myself in the middle and help somebody get into a property with only 30 grand, and then one of those properties, like I helped fix up and whatnot, and we ended up pulling 9 months into the property. We pulled 90 grand of equity out. So they got their whole down payment back, all of our renovation costs, and I still pocketed money, and it still makes money, And that was at 7% interest. So it's not like anything that's not today.
Sure.
Right? So then I was like, well, if I can do this on like a little $300,000 house, like can I do it on a bigger house and a bigger property or whatever? And so that's kind of when, wedding venue, little resort in Kentucky, mobile home park, just kind of we're doing an apartment complex now, like just start to add up, because like if you can figure it out, what different challenges are there to figure out the bigger stuff. So
interesting.
And going back to your question, how do you structure a partnership? It's literally whatever you want, like however, what do you need most? Do you want cash flow the most? Do you want equity the most? Do you need most help on taxes? Like what's kind of what's your need? And real estate's super, since it makes money in 4 different ways, where almost any other asset's going to be 1, maybe 2, It's like it's pretty easy to be flexible and make it to what they need. So some deals, like they just wanted more equity and to feel like they owned more of it, and I get more cash flow. Some of them, they're like, most of them are just 50-50 because they don't want to do anything, and I do all the work for them. But.
And they just bring the cash, and you'd bring everything else, or do you bring cash as well?
No, I don't. I think on one deal I brought cash. I've never really brought cash.
Cool. So you bring the deal, you do the work, you do the hustle.
Yeah. So like one deal I have under contract right now. It's a vacation home, $1.4 million. If you were to go buy it through a regular bank, your payment would be north of $9,500, 95, almost 10 G's. Instead, with seller finance, it's going to be $5,200 plus your taxes and HOA. It's a little under $6,000. So it's like $4,000 difference just by knowing how to structure and write up a seller finance deal.
Which is incredibly valuable.
So it's so easy to find somebody that, is working so hard at their job and what they're really good at and their niches, and let me do mine and just link up. It's a big benefit to everybody.
I love that. So in my mind, when I first started getting into real estate, it was like, cool, I can buy I can house hack, and then at some point I'm going to get capped due to my DTI. And like at some point I'm going to have 2 or 3 properties, and it's like, holy smokes, the bank's not going to loan me anymore because my DTI is capped and I already have these other loans, and I don't have time on the loans to continue to get more and more and more properties, maybe one a year. But to make that jump to multiple, you have to get creative. Talk to us on, you mentioned seller finance, but talk to us on what it entails in order to really scale in real estate, to go from 1 property to 50 properties in a year. Or you mentioned partnerships, another way to do that. But I think a lot of people have this idea that they're bottlenecked due to the system and how conventional loans work. What's the workaround for that, and what ways do you do that so you can scale to multiple properties a year?
Yeah, so man, that's such a good question, because if you are just buying normal single family rentals, the bank's going to count 75% of that rental.
Yep.
So usually the most you're going to be able to get up to is about 10, on your DTI usually. And they're going to count those as income, and, that's kind of where they're going to cap you. And then you can do a lot of things with throwing them in different LLCs and then trying to get more or in those LLCs. And it can snowball naturally that way. But what I've seen is it's a lot easier to find seller finance deals that they don't even care about your DTI. Like, they care that they're getting the purchase price they want, they're getting the monthly payment they want, they're spreading out their tax liability to a certain amount or whatever. But the main thing that I've seen is, like, I'm really liking commercial more and more, just because they care most about the asset.
Right.
They don't.
Right.
They're giving you or this property the loan, and they don't trust you. They don't. They trust the property is going to perform. That's the only reason that they're going to give it to you.
Now, when you say commercial, most people automatically go to like, strip malls, restaurants, stuff like that. We're talking apartment complexes, mobile home parks.
Yeah, I should say multifamily. Technically, a lot of them are commercial buildings, but yeah.
Anything 4 doors and 5 doors and above.
Yeah.
Goes under commercial. Okay.
Yeah, even wedding venue, things like that. Yeah. Or land. Think about land. I know a few people that it's like, you buy land, 50 acres, you get it rezoned for assisted living. I know someone that did this, and all of a sudden they bought it for, I think it was like $500K, and then as soon as they rezoned it, it was worth $2 million, just because they went through that process for like 6 months or a year, right? Wow. And then they borrowed against that equity to actually build the assisted living, right? So it's just like there's an insane amount, millions of ways to do real estate, but I think I've kind of come to the conclusion there's only two options. Like especially when you're in sales, it doesn't matter if you're selling cars or door to door. It's like, one, you either have to just insanely focus on your job and make so much money, and you'll buy a few deals here and there, and have other people manage them. But mostly I would say get your money to someone or some company that's going to make you an insane amount of money while you're really focused on your thing. Yeah. Then once you transition out of it, then you can do whatever. Or 2, you've got to take a pay cut, and you've got to learn everything you can about, if you want to do real estate, if it's real estate, and take a big pay cut and figure that out, and then help everybody else out that's not taking the time to do that. And then you'll be fine. I feel like there's only 2 options. Like,
I love that.
A lot of people are trying to do everything.
Both.
It's really, if I could go back, I don't regret anything I learned in sales. It's just after a summer or 2, like, I wish I would have, I already knew what I wanted to do, but I just delayed it because I saw the promise and
Sure. I love that. I think majority of people fall in that category. Therefore, they don't move forward. If they do, it's incredibly slow.
Yeah. You ever heard the term or the phrase, if I just buy one property every year for the next 10 years, then I'm going to be good.
It does not work out like that.
80% of those people never even get one.
Yeah.
Hey, I've been looking at Zillow. Oh, Really? Yeah, like so is everybody
Yeah.
else and their
Yeah.
dog.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
you know, pretty cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. So 2 questions from a how-to standpoint. Cool. You get 50-50 partnership. You find these deals. You do the hustle. How are you finding these partners? How are you creating this network where it's like, hey, I got this deal? Walk us through that if someone's trying to do something similar.
I think that's probably one of the only reasons I'm on social media. I only have 2 reasons I'm on social media, and that's just I like the memories, like posting family and renovations, and just to look back and be like, cool, like that
Journal.
built that, yeah, journal. And the other one is just networking. So that's the only reasons I'm on there. I would make a pretty strong argument that if almost anybody in the United States, if they got to know me and they got to know what I was doing every day, every single person would partner with me. Like, I strongly believe that.
That's beautiful.
So it's like, it doesn't like, it's just kind of like wherever I'm at. It's like, oh, what do you do? Like, oh, I buy real estate. Well, what do you mean? Like, are you an agent? Are you like, well, I guess, yeah, I have my license, but I mostly just invest in properties to make a, bunch of cash flow and buy properties with other people. And I just leave it at that. And most of the time it's like, hey, send me deals. Like, I want to see some good deals, and there's been a few times where they've been like, well, I feel like you should put up some money too. And it's like 100%, I can totally see where you come from, saying that. Like, but like, I have all these other people that
will do it
don't want me to do it. So like, what would you do if you weren't me? Right? Because I feel like I'm creating some good value, so it's hard for me to say like, oh, how do you find partners? It's like, you really just know what you're doing,
become credible,
and have confidence and work your butt off. And then like, whoever you're talking to, it doesn't matter what job they're in. If you know how to find good deals and you can help them save on taxes, make passive income and have a sick vacation home or whatever, like, they're going to want to be around you. So
I love it. And then a big strategy that you've been utilizing is creative finance. A lot of your deals, most of your deals that you're finding and sourcing are creative finance, whether it's sub 2 or seller finance. You were talking to me prior to this a little bit on how you've done some of those and created some of those scenarios. Dive deep on where you're finding those and what that pitch looks like for someone to say, hey, I will seller finance my home to you.
Yeah.
Because if people can learn this and truly learn it and truly go do it, anyone can do it.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's huge. I'd say the main pitch to people, so it just depends. So if it's a primary house that they own, and a lot of Pace Morby, a lot of other people buy things seller finance that they're not owned outright. I personally don't really touch that stuff. Not because I think it's a huge risk, because the banks haven't really called anything due and whatever, but to me it's just there's way more negotiating power when
they own it outright.
Your margins can be way different. No payments for a year, crazy low interest rate, whatever it is. So if it's their primary home, to get them to seller finance, you have to understand what they bought it for. Let's say they bought it for $500K, and let's say it's worth $1 million, right? If they're married, they can sell that and make that $500K gain and pay no taxes on it. Above $500K, they're going to pay some capital gains taxes on it. And so it's kind of tough to be like, would you seller finance? Because they're not going to pay any taxes on it anyway, so maybe why would they do that, right? And for some people, have you ever heard of like a reverse mortgage?
Mm-mm.
Basically, it's where you own your house outright and you get a reverse mortgage, and the bank basically gets to use your house as collateral to go buy a bunch of more stuff. But they're giving you a payment every month out of the equity of your house. So it's like they're paying you, you know, basically your retirement. It's just coming out of the equity of your house
Interesting.
every month. Kind of like that, but with a lot more interest and a lot more better purchase price and whatnot. It's kind of what it is with seller finance, where it's like, cool, like, yeah, you could go sell your property for $1 million if someone will pick it up, but like, we'll buy it for 1.2, you know, if you just hold the loan for 7 or 10 years or whatever, and we'll put a certain amount down, but like, we want a really low interest rate. We want no payments for a year. Excuse me, whatever it is. And so there's it's hard to like explain in a 5-minute
Sure.
how to seller finance, because there's 1,000 ways to do it. If it's an investment property, if it's a primary home,
Which is so fun, dude.
it's actually way fun. And a lot of people don't understand this too. What is the average time that someone is in their home? You know?
10 hours a day.
I mean, like, how many years?
Oh,
Sorry.
no idea.
It's like 5 years.
Interesting.
Okay, it's like 4 to 7. So it's like, okay, well, what are the banks doing about that? Well, guess what? When you go get a loan with a 30-year amortization schedule, your first year is like 90% interest.
Yep.
Your first 7 years are like 70%
Yep.
interest.
Yep.
They have that for a reason, right? They just front load it all. And so one thing we do in seller finance too, it's like people are like, hey, let's say if you got a 3% interest on their property, it would be like a $1,500 payment. It's like, no, I want like 8% interest. So their payment's $2,000. It's like, do you want 8% interest, or do you want like a $2,000 payment every month? Like, I want a $2,000 payment every month. Like, that's what I care about. It's like, cool. Well, we can definitely do that. And then what we've done with a few duplexes here in Provo, and I gave them to investors actually, is we negotiated no payments for a couple months, and then for the whole 5-year balloon on that seller finance, it's 50% interest, 50% principal. And so if they would have, check this out, if they would have during those 5 years kept the normal amortization schedule, they would have paid off $13,000 of the property. That's it. Since we set up the seller finance with 50-50, they'll pay off almost $70,000.
Wow.
With
Wow.
principal.
At what rate?
It doesn't really matter, right? It's just a $2,000 payment.
Huh.
That's what's interesting. If you look at the effective rate, it technically would have been like 1.9,
Wow.
because you're front loading half of the
I didn't know that.
half the principal down. Yeah, that's what's crazy. It's just like people would be dumb not to seller finance for 2% interest with a way higher purchase price, because they're getting an insane amount of interest during those 5 years on a balloon. But instead, they think that they want a high interest rate or a higher payment. And so we're like, hey, we'll do, you know, I think the rents on that was like $3,500 a month, and they wanted a $2,000 payment. It's like, we would have done a $3,000 payment.
Sure.
With 70% going to principal, right? You're basically the tail end of the loan. And so it's like, you have the property $100,000-$200,000 paid off over 5 years, where you're just using that as the bank, and the cash flow is going in there instead of just like separate, so you're not being taxed on it yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's an insane amount of ways to do it.
Very interesting. And how are you finding them?
Zillow, MLS, off market, people call them. I think there's probably 7 different ways. There's not like I wouldn't say there's like a main way that I get deals. You know, some are brought to me, some are just sitting there, some are a friend of a friend, you know.
Cool.
Yeah.
Just applying as much leverage as possible.
Yeah. And that's the thing. A lot of people, whether it's sales, real estate, anything else, they're like, well, where are you selling? Well, what areas do you have? You know, or hey, how are you finding these people or these deals? And it's just like, because I'm looking. That's it. You know, because I know I can find them instead of just like a specific way to get them.
Well, I love it. I love it. So, what's the future?
You. I'm just kidding. Just try to live up to my hero, Blake Erickson.
You've surpassed me now, man.
No, dude. I think the main thing for us is like, we since my wife and I got married, we want to have 6 kids because they're the hardest but best thing in the world.
Absolutely.
We just had our second. And we want to give a lot. And I don't just mean money. I just mean like people don't know how much money they're giving to the banks and to the government. So just to be able to like, hey, even if you don't want me a part of the deal, and I'll just give this deal to you, you know, I've helped a lot of people for free to be able to like get an insane deal for themselves just to get in a house because it gets getting tougher and tougher. But so a lot of kids, a lot of memories, a lot of fun, a lot of giving. And then ultimately we want to serve like 2 or 3 missions for our church.
Beautiful.
As a couple. So,
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. And do you have certain metrics that you're working towards? Is it, hey, I want this much cash flow coming in, or I want this many doors? I know doors can be gray area because it doesn't really signify anything.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
You know, it started at, man, dude, if I get 10 grand a month, that would just be awesome.
Do you mind sharing what you're at now?
It depends on the month because we have, you know, if maybe someone doesn't pay, short-term rentals, wedding venues, but it's anywhere from 16 grand to 40 grand.
Beautiful.
So it's a big range.
Beautiful.
Big range. But average is probably like 25,000 a month. Yeah.
Beautiful.
But I it used to be like 10 and then it was 20 and now it's 100, but like I know like I'll definitely get to $1 million a month from cash flow because the bigger deals it gets easier and easier. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your vision. Thanks for inspiring us to think bigger. You've inspired me to go way bigger in real estate and apply a lot more leverage that I haven't been applying. This podcast is Modern Day Heroes, and I'm grateful to have you on because I do see you as that. Last question for you. Has there been anybody in your life that out of real estate that's been a hero to you, that's impacted you greatly? And if so, what have they taught you? Who's your hero?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely I would say my wife. It's the first person that comes to my mind. Really feel like she's believed in me more than I believed in myself sometimes. And same with God. I feel like you go to him with your troubles and then, you know, sometimes he's like, you know, get right. And sometimes he's like, you know, you have a big importance. Those would be the 2 main ones. There's just been a lot of, I wasn't home a lot in junior high and high school. I was at a lot of friends' houses. A lot of friends' parents that like just saw I worked hard, I think, but like they believed in me more than I believed in myself. And so just feeling that from other people was huge for me. But yeah, definitely my wife.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Those are 2 of the best heroes you can have, man.
Yeah, and Blake Erickson.
Good. That's top 3 for sure.
Yeah.
Blake, God, and your wife. Well, thank you for being on, man. I'm grateful for who you are and what you're doing. What you're doing is cool, but who you are is the most important and the most admirable.
I appreciate that.
And look forward to keep jamming, dude, and keep hearing on your journey and what you continue to accomplish.
Yeah, I appreciate you, and just I honor you, and I'm just grateful for your example too.
Thanks, my friend. I appreciate you, brother. We'll see you guys next week.